You know what's sad? I felt apathy halfway into the first quarter of this game against the Suns. And I am not an apathetic person. Either I'm very happy watching the Warriors or I'm very upset. It's one way or the other. When you feel apathy, that's when you just generally feel hopeless and you know that there's not going to be any changes. And it's like there's nothing to look forward to. Obviously, as always, every time Steve Kerr runs this lineup, I just feel hopeless and my mind is just constantly blown at this idea that Steve Kerr can never fundamentally understand what he's doing wrong. It's night after night now, where this guy announces the starting lineup that includes Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, and GP2. And Andrew Wiggins is at the 4, and Quinton Post, who showed the last game against the Thunder that he's not ready or prepared to be a starting center in the NBA. And yet he started again tonight, and that lineup alone gives you very little hope that the Warriors are going to have much success. And then on top of that, there's this garbage motion offense where Steph Curry is off the ball for a majority of the first and the third quarters. Every single first quarter without fail, the first 5 minutes of the game passes by and Steph Curry barely has one shot to show for it. Tonight's game, he played 8 minutes in the first quarter and he took one shot. And it's not because the Suns were playing incredible defense against Steph Curry. It's because that's the offense. Steve Kerr runs an offense that is designed to have Steph Curry play off the ball, stand in the corners half the time, and just be completely passive while his teammates go to work. And almost without fail, whenever Steph Curry is this passive, the Warriors have trouble winning games. The first 14 minutes of the game, Steph Curry took 3 total shots. I mean, that's basically half the game right there for Steph Curry. And yes, you know me. It always comes down to the charlatan nature of Steve Kerr, where he sub-optimizes everything imaginable on both ends of the floor, handicapping his team all over the place, all over the map, and making each and every single game incredibly difficult to win, rather than optimizing and maximizing everybody, all the players at every position, all the concepts, all the ways where you can maximize the effectiveness of any given player on the floor. But this offense isn't designed to help any particular offensive player. It just all comes down to who happens to be wide open. And that's it. It's not geared for their best player, which is Steph Curry, with any consistency. It's not geared towards any of their bigs. It's not geared towards anybody who may be good at ISOs. It's only ever whoever happens to be open for a shot. And the problem with that is, a lot of the times, nobody's really open. They're trying to run this stupid offense, and half the time it gets blown up, and then somebody has to take some last second shot because the offensive execution is just constantly failing because the other team knows exactly what the Warriors are running most of the time. Meanwhile, their best point generator is just chilling for half the game. And as a pattern recognizer, when you see that Steph Curry is being completely passive and this is how he's starting once again, and then you have this garbage starting lineup on top of that, Quinton Post, a completely inexperienced rookie, is suddenly thrown into the starting lineup, and he's being asked to protect a 3-guard lineup. Andrew Wiggins is totally sub-optimized at the 4, and just like Trace cannot hold a lineup like that down, neither can Quinton Post. And the funny thing about it is that in the previous game against the OKC Thunder, Steve made the adjustment of starting Kevon Looney instead of Quinton Post in the second half of the game. And things at least looked much better when they did it that way, because Looney is strong enough as an anchor to hold down a lot of different lineups. And yet, like clockwork, Steve Kerr went right back to Quinton Post, and the Warriors have no defensive structure. The Suns are getting whatever they want. The Suns had 42 assists in this game. That is the most assists they've had as a franchise since 2007, back in the Steve Nash days. 56% from the field, 49% from the three-point line. And this is why any serious coach, any serious team, any team that is trying to be competitive have to put out a lineup that is defensively capable first and foremost. That is a basic prerequisite if you want to be a team that competes. And then you try to organize from an offensive standpoint which guys are the best from an offensive standpoint that you can start but are also your most reliable defenders. And well, when your front court is GP2 Andrew Wiggins, and Quentin Post. I just don't understand what Steve Kerr thinks that this lineup is capable of. Even if you replace Quentin Post with Trayce Jackson-Davis, there's nothing that Trayce can do when the two guys next to him is a 6'2 guy and a 6'7 guy that is not a power forward. There is no power forward on the floor for the Warriors when you have Andrew Wiggins and GP2 on the floor at the same time. The lineup shuffling is completely disorganized. Once again, Steve Kerr has been coaching this team for 10 years and he's still experimenting. Over half the season has gone by and the guy is starting Quentin Post, and this is just comical. And tonight, Steve Kerr went back to a 12-man rotation. You know, this guy actually said that the Warriors are not good enough talent-wise, and he's basically advocating for a trade, which he's never done before. So this clearly shows a sense of desperation on his end as well, considering that the Warriors just beat OKC Thunder, and then he comes out before the Suns game talking about how the Warriors need to make a trade. I mean, really, I've never seen anything like it. Have you ever seen an NBA head coach inserting himself into the decision making of the front office in terms of, oh, do we need to make a trade or do we not need to make a trade? The guy did it last year, the year before, and he's doing it this year. Why is it that he has an input on what the front office should be doing? I mean, that's just a lose-lose situation no matter how you slice it. But more importantly, it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, what the Warriors do from a trade standpoint. They could absolutely get better, but as long as Steve Kerr is the one in control, and as long as he's the decision maker, and as long as he's the guy who puts those said traded pieces into whatever positions that they're going to be put into, there's no way that you can optimize any player as long as Steve Kerr is the decision maker. Given this, and given the inclination at this point that the Warriors probably will not fire Steve Kerr this season, because they love him too much, because they're too classy, because Steph Curry loves him too much, we as a fan base are stuck in this hellhole. So moving forward, I'm gonna try to protect my own well-being and health. I hope you guys do as well, because being stressed activates your fight or flight mode, and when your fight or flight mode is activated, your immune system slows down or shuts down depending on how stressed you are. That's how your body works. Once your body identifies that you are in stress, it goes into fight or flight mode. Basically, it activates your physical ability. It's like a deer. If he sees that somebody's coming for its life, it gets stressed, and then its physical abilities gets activated and the immune system shuts down. Because when you're about to get eaten alive, it's not the time for your immune system to go around cleaning up the bad stuff inside. It's time to be active. And see, for human beings, stress comes in a lot of different ways. And if you're a Warriors fan, there's no way that you're not stressed watching these games. And again, if you're stressed, your immune system slows down or shuts down. And so a lot of bad things that are inside of you are now free to attack you. You become vulnerable. And that is the precursor to all illnesses. So I advise you to just take it for what it is, understand what's going on, but to try your best to not be too emotionally involved in this situation. It does sound like the Warriors are ready to absolutely make a trade though by Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll see what comes of that. It may be Zach LaVine, it may be Vucevic, it may be Jimmy Butler. We don't know, but it is for certain that bodies are going to be moved. It kind of saddens me because there are some critical pieces on this roster that needs to stay. But as long as Steve Kerr is the coach, these pieces are not really gonna matter anyway because he's never gonna figure it out. And even if they get back one of these pieces, they're probably going to end up losing another critical piece that's going to be needed. But at the same time, I feel that if you have a chance to get somebody like Jimmy Butler and put that guy next to Steph Curry, you gotta do it. You know, I saw a report yesterday with Steph Curry saying that both Steph Curry and Steve Kerr are in agreement in regards to Jimmy Butler, and they're questioning the idea of bringing a guy like that because he may be a problem in the locker room. To be honest, I feel like Jimmy is just the type of personality that would call out Steve Kerr's bullshit and call him an idiot to his face. I think the Warriors need something like this. And the notion that Steph Curry would question the idea of bringing a guy like Jimmy Butler along because he worries about how the locker room dynamics would work shows a lack of leadership on his part. Because I don't think Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, these types of guys, would have a problem with bringing in a guy like Jimmy Butler because you can't handle the personality. Kobe Bryant openly welcomed Ron Artest to his team, and he helped Kobe to a championship. Michael Jordan openly welcomed Rodman, one of the biggest headaches of a personality in the NBA at the time. And it just seems like Steph Curry has bought into Steve Kerr, like he's more into feelings and vibes rather than competitive spirit and dealing with whatever is necessary in order for your team to play elite basketball. And then obviously in the previous game, I showed you a clip where Steph Curry was upset for being taken out in that fourth quarter against OKC, which again shows you that he's not okay with some of the moves and the decision making of Steve Kerr. But he's too soft to take any stance about it. And seeing all these things, I'm very convinced at this point that Steph Curry cannot be relied upon to make the right decisions when it comes to this franchise. I mean, he even agreed with the idea that, they shouldn't give away their young pieces so that it doesn't mess up their future too much. I mean, what are we talking about? I'm losing faith in Steph Curry in a lot of different ways, and this is really sad to say, but the truth is the truth. I still believe when the conditions are right, when he has a coach by his side who knows what he's doing and he's got the right pieces around him, the surrounding conditions are correct, I still believe that Steph Curry can go get more championships. But I don't believe that he has enough force to fight back against the coach who doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't think he can be trusted upon when it comes to front office making decisions. He cares too much about his teammates, he cares too much about the feelings around him, and he cares too much about being a good guy, without realizing that the NBA is not a family gathering, it is a business, and you guys are transactional pieces. That is the most objective way to look at NBA players. They are transactional pieces that are movable depending on whether it's working or not. It's really that simple. I don't know how he hasn't learned that lesson after seeing Klay Thompson leave him right before his eyes. Steph Curry wanted to keep Klay Thompson by his side until retirement, and Klay Thompson had no interest in doing that. Get a clue, Steph. So the front office needs to make moves. I know for a fact that Joe Lacob is not a fan of Steve Kerr, and Joe Lacob was willing to move away from Klay Thompson no matter what Steph Curry wanted to say about it. So in that sense, I don't know what Joe Lacob is waiting on when it comes to Steve Kerr. He needs to get this guy out of here. Steve Kerr is sabotaging Joe Lacob's team, no matter how you slice it. So whether it's removing the head coach, whether it's going out and getting a trade, the front office needs to stay away from listening to the players at this point. Don't listen to Steph Curry, and especially don't listen to Draymond Green. Draymond Green is not some mastermind when it comes to the game of basketball as a general manager type. He's actually one of the architects of drafting guys like Jacob Evans, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. Respectfully, Draymond Green is kind of a charlatan. Do not listen to him. He's a clutch agent anyway. I think he's low-key more interested in doing what's best for his family clutch team than the Warriors. And yeah, once again, if the Warriors end up trading guys like Kevon Looney, GP2, Andrew Wiggins, something along those lines, well, they're going to be missing some really vital, critical, fundamental pieces that are needed for success in the playoffs from a defensive standpoint. And again, I just don't think that these guys should be moved before Steve Kerr, because the Warriors don't really actually know or understand what they have on this roster until they get the criminal out of there. It's absolutely incredible to watch how one single individual can completely and utterly destroy everything. Proper leadership is so vital. And again, when you have a guy who sub-optimizes everything rather than maximizing everything, you can be left with a complete and utter clown show, even on a team with a bunch of championship caliber pieces on it, even on a roster with a guy like Steph Curry on it. And again, we're not just talking about this year. We're talking about last year, the year before that, and 2 years before that as well. You've got to understand when somebody's time has run out with an organization. And when it comes to Steve Kerr, that was roughly 3 years ago. But sadly enough, it seems the situation is just not going to change when it comes to Steve Kerr, at least for the remainder of this season. I have been watching this team since 2010, so I unfortunately have to see this through. And if you consider yourself the most loyal fan, then I suppose you'll have to sit through this too. It is what it is. We'll go through it game by game. I appreciate your resilience. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you enjoyed the content, you know what to do. Until next time.